After the little girl finished eating, she thanked Lim for saving her and giving her something to eat. She says she would repay his kindness someday. Lim asked her how she was able to cross the dimensional gate alone, but the little girl didn't answer. So he asked her where she was before coming to the dimensional gate. The little girl says she didn't want to talk about it, so Lim asked her for her age, but again she refused to give him an answer. He continued to ask her questions, but in the end he couldn't find out anything about the girl. The little girl asked Lim to help her. She says she was weak and knew nothing about this strange place, however she could use fire. She activated her ability to show Lim, but the fire quickly went out and she said she didn't have full control over her fire ability yet. Lim told her he was too busy to babysit a kid, and he had no reason to help her. However, he said she could stay with him for 1 month. In that month he would teach her their language, some basic knowledge, and in return she would do chores and follow his orders. The little girl happily agreed, making Lim regret his decision already. He handed her some dishes and said her stay with him wouldn't be free. The little girl took the dishes and introduced herself as Lily. She was hoping her and Lim would get along. Lily looked around, questioning where she was supposed to wash the dishes Lim handed to her. Lim pointed to where she was supposed to wash the dishes. After Lily left, Lim began to question why her name sounded so familiar. He recalled the monster who would burn half of Seoul to a crisp 10 years from now. This person's name was Lily too, and she was from the Gaia continent with red hair the color of flames and the ability to use fire. This person would become one of the 6 disasters, the Fire Witch. Lily looked similar to this person. In fact, they were basically identical. Lim knows that the Fire Witch was kidnapped by a criminal organization when she was young and raised as a disaster. So if Lily was the Fire Witch, then he likely ended up stopping one of the disasters from happening. The next day he and Lily went to the market. Lily looked around at all the food stands and asked Lim where they were. Lim told her they were at the market and said he plans on making a special dinner for the both of them. Lily became excited to see what Lim would make, and a few minutes later Lim brought them to a meat stand and asked the seller if he had any raptor tenderloins. The seller told Lim they had plenty. Lim then narrates that after the opening of the first dimensional gate, the food crisis caused people to start eating monster meat. Right now there was a lot of monster meat, but people aren't willing to eat the meat from the monsters. But that was only because they didn't know the functions of the meat yet. The meat and other monster ingredients contain mana, which helps hunter cultivate their mana. And in the future it would become impossible to buy ingredients infused with mana. Lim proceeded to buy as much of the monster meat as possible, and because Lily was with him, the seller gave him plenty extra. As they were walking back to the contamination control area, they stopped by a clothing store and Lim asked Lily to pick out some clothes she would want to wear. Lily picked out a cute outfit and showed it to Lim. Lim looked at the price tag of the dress and picked out a tracksuit for Lily instead. Lim told Lily that it wouldn't feel right if she was wearing good clothes in the contaminated control area. Later that night, Lim cooked the special meal he was talking about by mixing all the meats he bought from the market. He called it Lim's signature mana nutrition-rich meal. Lily stared at the food and asked Lim if the food is editable. Lim didn't know how to respond and says healthy foods are meant to look like this. Lily began to smell something other than what Lim made. She asked Lim as he was smelling it too. Lim told her he got chicken for them to eat after his masterpiece, but it wouldn't hurt if he opened the chicken box now. Lily ate one of the drumsticks, instantly falling in love with it. She says from now on chicken will be the only thing she eats. Lim grabbed the box of chicken and told Lily to eat his masterpiece too, or he would mix the chicken with the food he made. Lily begged him not to do it and said she would eat his food too. Lim poured himself some of the soup and said he didn't understand why Lily was being so picky. It wasn't like the soup he made was completely inedible. But in reality he struggled to eat the soup as well. It was just barely at the level that he wouldn't die from eating it. Lim continued to eat the soup while thinking about all of the delicacies he would be enjoying right now if he didn't regress. After they finished, Lim asked Lily to do the dishes. He asked her not to disturb him. Lim sat down and started using the Great Sea Mind technique. This technique boosts one's magical power and it was flexible on how to use it. He trained his mana using the technique before he regressed, but to his surprise his mana was increasing faster than he expected. Before he regressed, no matter what effort he put into this mind technique, it never worked this well. He began to wonder if it was because of the food and his young age. As he continued to meditate, he could feel his danshan increasing vastly. At this rate, if he continued to eat mana-rich food and meditate with the Great Sea Mind technique, he would be stronger than when he regressed. A while later he finished his meditation, and his stomach was growling. Lily, who had finished the dishes, heard Lim's stomach and asked him if he wanted to get some chicken. However, instead of buying chicken, Lim made more of his soup, making Lily upset. 2 days later, Lim was impressed with the results he managed to achieve in that short amount of time. At the level he was, he could go for a treasure hunt. He received a phone call from Beak, and after he picked up, she says she was disappointed. She thought Lim was going to call her first. She asked if he wasn't concerned about her well-being. Lim had totally forgotten Beak existed and told her he was busy. He asked her if she finished adding the clauses he mentioned to the contract. Beak remained silent, and judging from her silence, Lim concluded she ran into some problems. Beak told Lim that she convinced the guild leader, but he wanted Lim to prove his skills before he hired him. Lim asked Beak if the guild leader wanted him to take a test. Beak apologized, saying she also thinks he doesn't need to take a test, but there's nothing she could do. She told him if he waited a few more days she could find another way. Lim quickly told her he wanted to take the test, however he had one condition. The next day Lim and Lily made their way to the White House Guild's HQ, where they met with Beak, who asked about Lily. Lim told Beak that Lily is his half-sister. He told Beak that Lily lived abroad so her Korean isn't great, and he would have to bring her around with him for the meantime. Lily thought Beak was beautiful. She asked Lim who Beak was, and Lim told her Beak is someone who would give them money. In Lily's mind, money equaled chicken, so she concluded that Beak was a good person. Beak told Lim that the guild wouldn't mind having Lily around. She says the White House Guild doesn't meddle in the lives of hunters. Beak brought them into the guild leader's office, where they were greeted by the White House Guild leader Changsu. Changsu reaches forth his hand for a handshake and says the White House Guild wanted to reach out to Lim earlier, but certain things had come up. Lim shook his hand and says he didn't mind because he also had some personal issues. Changsu says he heard Lim wanted double the contract sum if he passed the White House Guild's test, but he was beginning to question if Lim was really worth that much. Changsu released his aura. Lim was sure Changsu didn't know any martial arts or magic, but his aura was still overwhelming. It's no wonder he is the guild leader, and if it was some other hunter, Changsu's intimidation tactics would have worked. But it wouldn't work on him. Lim started releasing his aura and told Changsu he would prove his worth. This surprised Changsu. Changsu quickly turned to Beak and asked her to rewrite the contract. Beak told him if they rewrite the signing contract with the previous terms, Lim might reject it. Changsu told Beak not to worry and asked her to triple the contract signing bonus. He also told her to add a clause that says Lim would be paid 20 billion as a signing bonus if he passed all of the tests. This shocked Lim because the offer went from 2 billion to 20 billion. He told Changsu that he enjoyed his leadership and says he is ready for the test. Later at the White House Guild training grounds, Beak told Lim that to pass the test he has to win in sparring matches against 3 members of the White House Guild. And since it was a test, she asked him to be careful. She introduced Hwan Janghak and said he would be Lim's first opponent. Beak asked Lim if he would like to choose a weapon for the match. Lim showed her his watch and said it would be enough. This irritated Hwan. From the looks of it, Lim only awakened recently, but yet he was already being arrogant. Changsu started the match, but before attacking, Hwan whispered saying he would cripple Lim. Lim took a defensive stance, questioning why Hwan wasn't attacking. Before he regressed, he read about Hwan from a magazine. Hwan's trait is speed. He has the ability to get faster the more he moves without stopping, which is why he wanted to win quickly. Hwan ran directly at Lim and began running circles around him. Lim thought Hwan would attack him directly. This was not what he was expecting. The White House Guild members watched the battle with lack of anticipation. They were amazed as they watched their guild member speed up. They all came to the conclusion that Hwan would win this battle. Changsu's eyes were fixated on the battle, and Beak watched nervously. Hwan had gotten so fast that all Lim could see were his after images. He told Lim not to worry because he would end the battle quickly. Using his momentum, he attacked Lim. However, before he could land his attack, Lim was able to attack with the watch. As Hwan fell to the ground, Lim wondered if he knew the momentum from his speed could be redirected at him. Lim turned to Changsu and asked for his next opponent. Changsu approached Lim, saying he had amazing eyes to be able to keep up with Hwan's speed. Lim thanked him and asked if Hwan would be okay. Changsu said Hwan didn't suffer any life-threatening injuries, and the medical staff is by his side right now, so he'll be good after a few days' rest. Changsu thanked Lim and says if he didn't hold back, Hwan's life might have been in danger. Lim was surprised that Changsu knew he was concealing his strength. If he really wanted to, he could have easily made Hwan's head fly off. Lim looked up at the guild members who were watching him. After defeating Hwan, his signing bonus is now at 6 billion and that money is guaranteed. He also now meets the requirements to join the guild. He smiled at them, hoping the rest of the test would be just as fun. Lily noticed his face and asked why he was smiling like a pervert. Lim told her he was trying to intimidate the other guild members. They quickly made their way to the second test location, which was the artificial forest training grounds, where Beak explained that the first unit of the White House Guild has 6 teams containing 5 people, and below them is the second division. She pointed to his next opponent and says he is the first unit's 6 team's captain. Yang Di-hoon introduced himself and said he hoped he and Lim could have a good match. He reached forth his hand hoping to get a handshake. However, Lim realized that Yang was among the guild members earlier and was directing killing intent at him. Lim didn't shake his hand. Instead, he put up his fist and said he was ready. Yang grabbed his sword and also said he was ready. With both parties ready, Changsu rang the bell signaling the start of the spar, and Lim quickly charged in and attacked Yang. Yang blocked the attack with his shield and counter with his sword. Lim dodged the attack but left himself in a compromising position. Yang thought this was his golden opportunity and attacked Lim with his shield. However, Lim disappeared and appeared behind him. Lim used the skill Eagle's Claw. Yang was able to block that attack with his shield in time, but he was now beginning to wonder if Lim learned martial arts before he awakened. He countered Lim's attack with his sword, but Lim was able to dodge the attack and send him flying. Lim was starting to get annoyed because Yang's physical endurance was no joke. Yang got up from Lim's attack and praised him for being strong. Lim didn't know what to do. He could end the fight, but he planned on hiding his power until the last test. But the sly Changsu put him in a position where he would have to lay everything out. Yang told Lim that after the fight he will request he be assigned to his team. He felt like him and Lim would be great partners. Lim asked him when he agreed to join his team, and Yang told him the winner could make a request. Yang asked Changsu if this wasn't what he said. Changsu said yes and told Lim that this was part of the contract. Lim said since it was already this way, if he won he wanted to become a team leader. The other guild members who were watching started laughing and said Lim was talking nonsense. Lim doubled down and told Changsu that if he won he wanted to run his own team that would be filled with people hired by him. And he wanted to have the freedom to carry out missions independently. At first he was going to wait and prove his skills before he proposed this, but there is no point in waiting now if he could get the team leader position along with the 20 billion signing bonus. Changsu agreed to Lim's proposition, but said if he lost he would half the signing bonus and double the contract period, and Lim verbally agreed to the new contract. Yang called out to Lim and asked if he really thought he could win. Lim laughed and asked Yang if he was jealous because Beak was showing interest in him. Lim said Yang was directing killing intent at him earlier because Beak wanted him, and Yang wanted to act all high and mighty by crushing him in this match. Lim knows that in the near future Yang was going to cause a huge controversy. He went through all sorts of humiliation and ultimately was kicked out of the White House Guild. He called Yang a pervert, which was his last straw. Yang told him he would show him what a future team leader is made of and activated his rage mode. Lim recognized this skill. It's a skill that activates when the user loses all reasoning. It raises the user's mana level and boosts their physical abilities. With his new physical boost, Yang charged at Lim at great speeds. However, Lim remained calm. He allowed Yang to get closer and activated the lightning fist technique. And before he punched Yang, he told him that for his sake he should block the attack with his shield. However, his advice didn't matter because his attack broke through Yang's shield and sent his unconscious body flying through the woods. Yang's defeat surprised the other White House Guild members. Lim fell to the floor. His entire body was aching. He couldn't believe he lost so much strength after just one lightning fist attack. However, there is nothing he could do, so for now he did a temporary fix using the mind technique. After all, he would have to use lightning fist again in the next fight. After he was finished, he made his way back where Beak congratulated him for becoming the 7th team leader. Lim liked the sound of being called the 7th team leader very much. The contract stated that passing the second test would guarantee him $1 billion as a yearly pay, and $6 billion as a signing bonus. His new goal was getting the 20 billion signing bonus. Since he was prepared, he asked Beak who he would be facing next. Changsu spoke, saying that would be him. Changsu says he didn't think Lim would actually win against Yang, so he now has no choice but to make himself be Lim's last test. Lim looked at Changsu, questioning if he really had to fight this monster. Lim gave up on the third test, surprising Changsu. Changsu told Lim he would give him $20 billion if he lasted for just 5 minutes. He saw from Lim's face that he wasn't interested. So he told Lim if he lasted for just 3 minutes he would give him $3 billion. However, Lim refused, saying he couldn't fight anymore. And Beak angrily told her father it was time for them to finalize the contract. Beak took Lim back to her office where he signed the contract. After he signed it, she told him the terms of the contract were ridiculous. Lim told her he knew and said he hoped they would have a good time working together. She said likewise and asked Lim how he planned on hiring members for his team. Lim told her he doesn't know yet but says he plans on scouting them out one by one. He asked Beak if he could sign a contract with someone right now. She told him it was possible but asked who he wanted to hire. He said it was someone who's not affiliated with any guild yet and is extremely talented, and called Lily's name. Lily turned to Lim and asked why he called. Lim asked her to make a fireball as big as she could. However, she refused, saying she was hungry. Lim told her if she did it he would give her 3 chicken legs. She quickly got out of her chair and asked Lim to keep his promise. She activated a giant fireball for her 3 chicken legs. Beak was surprised that Lily had supernatural powers too. Lim says her powers is why he wanted to put her on his team right away. Lim was impressed that Lily's fire wasn't burning the surrounding area. It means she's controlling her ability perfectly. She was controlling a fireball of that size even though he only taught her for a few days. There was no longer a doubt in his mind that Lily was one of the disasters. He asked Beak if they could negotiate Lily's contract payments right now. He was asking for $3 billion to start. But before they could start, Lily told them to wait and asked Lim for the chicken he promised. Lim had no choice but to go out and quickly buy Lily her chicken, and when he got back, him and Beak finished Lily's contract. Lily was now a member of Team 7 and her contract payment was 5 billion won. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then hit the like button.